Good morning. I hope you guys are all doing well. As you guys can see, I'm not here today, but we are going to get a chance to go over the first lesson for this chapter, use properties of exponents. Now today you guys will be able to simplify expressions with exponents using three different properties. So let's go over the first property. All of you guys have seen this before in Algebra 1. The product property of exponents, if we have two expressions multiplying and they have the same base, we can basically just add the exponents. In this case, we have letter A. How many A's do we have in here? We have 2 and we have 3. Now, some of you guys have expanded it before in Algebra 1, and if you want to do that same process, you can do the same process. So on the first one we have 2 A's, on the second one we have 3 A's. So how many A's do we have in total? We have a total of 5. Or you can just basically add the exponents. 2 and 3 more is a total of 5. On letter B, I need to simplify it. The coefficients, you need to multiply the coefficients. So we have two expressions that are multiplying. We are going to multiply the coefficients. So 2 times 3 will give us 6. The exponents, we have 3 x's and 4 more. We have a total of 7 x's. So that will give us 6x to the 7th. Sometimes the multiplication will be expressed when we have two parentheses. There's nothing in between. So they're still multiplying. So we're going to use the product property of exponents. We're going to multiply 3 times 2 will give us 6 x's. We have 1x and 2 more. We have a total of 3 x's. Remember, the exponent, if it doesn't have an exponent, automatically say 1. So we need to count this as 1x and 2 more is a total of 3. Y's. We have 3 and 1 more is a total of 4. And if you want to place the exponent will be 1. And that'll be my answer. That is the product property of exponents. The power of powers property, or the power property of exponents, means that whenever we have the exponent outside the parentheses, we can just multiply the exponents, just like distributive property. For example, on problem number letter A, we have x squared and to the third power. Now some of you guys have expanded it before in Algebra 1. Because it's to the third power, we can rewrite it 3 times. So we have x squared multiplied by x squared multiplied by x squared. So how many x's do we have? 2, 4, 6, or x to the 6th. So if you want to do this on every single problem, you can do the same thing. Or the power property of exponents will tell us the following, that we can just multiply, just like if it was distributive property. So you go to distribute the 3 to the second, to the 2. That gives x to the 6th power. So 3 times 2 will give us a 6. For letter B, the numbers, if they don't have an exponent, automatically there's a 1. The y does not have an exponent, automatically there's a 1. Or just like I showed my freshmen, the 4 will be taken over the 2. It's not going to multiply the coefficients. It's not going to multiply the 2, but it's going to take over. So it'll be 2 to the 4th power for the x. 3 times 4 will give us a 12. And the y will be taken over the 4 will be taken over the y. Or 4 times 1 will give us a 4. Now 2 to the 4th power will be 2 times 2, which is 8 times 2. 2 times 2 will be 4, times 2 will be 8, and then multiply by 2 will give us 16. X to the 12th and y to the 4th power. And that'll be my answer. The main thing that you need to remember is that the 4 is taking over the 2. It's not multiplying the 2. It'll be 2 to the 4th power, which is 16. On letter C, we have an exponent outside the parentheses. So we're going to go through the same process. The exponent is going to take over the negative 2. The exponent will take over the x, and then the exponent will multiply the 2. When it takes over the negative 2, this will be negative 2 to the third power, x to the third power, and y 3 times 2 will give us a 6. So it'll be negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 is 4, times negative 2 will give us a negative 8. So it'll be negative 8, x to the third power, y to the 6. And this will be your answer. So we have the product property, we have the power property, and we have the quotient property. The quotient property tells you that if they're dividing, you can subtract the exponents. So if you have the same base, you can subtract m minus n. On letter A, first you need to reduce your coefficients. They're dividing, so one number divides 4 and also divides 8. So we can divide by 4. 4 divided by 4 will give us a 1. 8 divided by 4 will give us a 2. Now for the exponents. We have x to the third and x to the second power. I must subtract the exponents. So 3 minus 2 will give us 1. So x to the first power. Now remember, you don't need the 1, so you don't have to write down to the first power. I'm going to get rid of it. The y's. I must subtract the exponents. 7 minus 5 will give us a 2. So y to the second power. That is the quotient property of exponents. For letter B, we're going to go through the same process. We're going to subtract the exponents. But whenever you have the coefficients, we don't subtract the coefficients. That's a coefficient just like a fraction. We need to reduce it. So one number divides 10 and also divides 2. So we can reduce it by 2. So 10 divided by 2 will give us a 5. 2 divided by 2 will give us a 1. Now let's start with the x's. X to the 6 and 1x. So 6 minus 1 will give us a 5. X to the 5. Now let's do the y's. We have 3 minus 7. We have 3 minus 7 is equal to negative 4. So we have y to the negative 4. Notice I'm placing them on the numerator. Once you subtract, they should go on the top. The z's, 4 minus 4, 0. So we are going to cancel them. Now, you cannot have a negative exponent. If you have a negative exponent, you need to make it positive by switching it to the denominator. So we can make a negative exponent positive, so it'll be 5 x to the 5th, and the exponent will come to the denominator, so give us 1 y to the 4th power. Once you bring it to the denominator, it becomes the opposite. It becomes positive in this case. And that'll be your answer. Your answers should not have a negative exponent. So you should not have a negative exponent as part of your answer. Let's continue with letter C. I need to reduce my fractions, my coefficients. So 18 and 14. One number divides 18, that also divides 14. So 18 divided by 14 will give us, let's see, they're both even, so I can divide by 2. That gives me 9 divided by 2 will give us a 7. And now I need to subtract my exponents for the x. I have 1x, so 1 minus 5. I'll do on the left hand side. 1 minus 5 is equal to 1 minus 6 is equal to negative 5. So this will be x to the negative 5th. I must subtract my exponents for the y's. So 4 minus 3. 4 minus 3 will give us a 1. So this will be y to the 1. But I don't need to write down the 1. if I have a negative exponent, I'm going to bring it to the opposite side to make it positive. In this case, I have a negative x to the fifth. I'm going to bring it down. That gives me x to the fifth, and the y stays on top. That is the quotient property of exponents. Try letter B, or letter D in this case. Try letter D, see what you get, and we can compare answers. Go and pause it, simplify, and see if you can get the correct answer. Excellent. So letter D. First, I must simplify my coefficients. So one number divides 6 and also divides, one number divides 2 that also divides 6. I'm going to divide by 2, gives me 1. I'm going to divide by 2, gives me 3. I must simplify my x's. So let's see, I have 5 minus 2. 5 minus 2 will give me a 3. 3 minus 2 for the y. So 3 minus 2 will give us a 1 or just y. For the z's, I have 1 minus 5. 1 minus 5 will give me a, see, we have 1 minus 5 will give me a negative 4. Just be careful when you have negative answers. 1 minus 5 is equal to negative 4. So this gives me z to the negative 4. But what happens when I have a negative exponent? Whenever I have a negative exponent, I need to bring it to the denominator. That will give me 1 over 3, x to the third, y, and that's z to the fourth power. And that will be my answer. Now let's go into more complex problems on the back side. We are still simplifying, but now we have parentheses with an exponent outside. So very similar to what we covered, whenever we have a exponent outside, we're going to use the power property. It's just like the distributive property. We're going to multiply. But before we do that, it is best to be able to simplify what's inside the parentheses. That will make your life easier. So some of you guys are going to multiply each one of them, and you can do that, that's fine. But it's best to simplify what's inside the parentheses. So let's simplify it first. Let's see. Let's go and simplify the coefficients. So 4 and 12. One number divides 12 and also divides 4. We can divide by 4. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. 12 divided by 4 will give us a 3. Let's simplify the x's. So we have 3 and we have 1. 3 minus 1 is 2. So we get x squared. And the y's, we have 2 minus 5. 2 minus 5 will give us a negative 3. Now what happens when I have a negative exponent? I must switch it to the denominator. So we have 1, 3, x squared, and that becomes y to the third power. Everything to the second power. Now that I simplify what's inside the parentheses, now I can do the exponent. Now, do I need the 1 in here? No. So I don't need to deal with this coefficient of 1. 2 times 2 will give us 4. Remember, the 2 is going to take over the 3. So that gives us 3 to the second power will give us 9. And 2 times 3 will give us 6. And that will be my answer. Nothing else to simplify. Key thing is to be able to simplify what's inside the parentheses first. On problem letter B, on the second problem, notice that the exponent is only to the denominator. So I can't simplify the numerator. The numerator will stay the same, 2xy to the fourth. On the denominator, we are multiplying, just like the distributive property, the 3 is going to take over the 3. So it'll be 3 to the third power. 3 times 3 times 3 will give us a 27. Multiply the exponents, 3 times 3 will give us 9. 3 times 2 will give us 6. And now I just need to simplify. Let's see, the coefficients 2 and 27 cannot be reduced. So this will just stay as 2 divided by 27. Now the x's. We have 1 minus 9 is negative 8. So therefore this will be x to the negative 8. Y's. 4 minus 6 will give us negative 2. Now what happens when I have a negative exponent? I'm going to switch it to the denominator. Switch them both to the denominator and they become a positive. So I have 2, 27, x to the 8, y to the second. And this will be my answer. So going positive, try letters C and D and see if you get the correct answer. Going positive. Excellent. So for letter C, we're going to go through the same process. We have an exponent outside. The exponent only belongs to the numerator. So I'm going to distribute the exponent to each one of them. That'll give me 2 to the second power. 2 to the second power is 2 times 2, which is 4. X, 2 times 2 will give us a 4. Y, 2 times 5 will give us a 10. Z is going to take, the 2 will be taken over by the Z. So the 2 will take over the Z. Denominator, we have a 6, x to the third power, y, z to the 7th power. And now we're going to reduce our fractions. Divided by 2 gives us 2 over 3. X's. 4 minus 3 will give us 1, or just x. The y's. 10 minus 1 will give us 9. Z's. 2 minus 7 will give us negative 5. At this point, some of you guys start thinking, no, it's negative 5, so I need to switch it to the denominator. So if you want to do that in one step, you can do that as well. So 2 minus 7 is negative 5. I'm going to switch it to the denominator to make it positive. And that'll be my answer. Let's try letter D. Notice that the exponent belongs to both of them. So if you want to distribute, you can distribute and then simplify. But it is best to simplify first before you distribute. You'll make your life a little bit easier. So let's see. Still will be square. So my fraction. There's nothing to reduce with the coefficient. So x, let's see, 5. The x's have 1 minus 2 is negative 1. But I want to make it positive, so I'm going to place it on the denominator. Or just x. Y's. 2 minus 3 is negative 1. So it'll be y to the negative 1. I'm going to place it on the denominator. Notice that I skipped a step, just like I did on this problem. So I'm going to get rid of the 1s. I don't need the 1s. Therefore, I'm going to simplify. I'm going to distribute my exponent. So this will be 5 squared. So it will be 5 times 5, which is 25. X to the second power. And y to the second power. And that will be my answer. Now let's continue to the last example. On the last example, notice that I have negative exponents. Whenever you have a negative exponent, you can go through the same rules of subtracting. Or if you want to make your life easier, just if it's a negative exponent, switch it to the denominator first. If it's a negative exponent, switch it to the numerator. And then we can simplify afterwards. So we have a 6 y z, and the y to the negative 2 comes up and becomes a positive. Denominator 10 x squared. The x to the negative 3 comes down, so it becomes a positive. And then we have z to the third, and we can now simplify. Let's see. You have 6 y's. I have 1 y and 2 more. It's a total of 3 y's. And you have a z. We have a 10. How many x's down in the denominator? We have 5. And we have 3 to the third. We have 2 and 3 more, is a total of 5. Let me simplify one more step. Yes, I do need to simplify my coefficient, so let's go and divide by 2. 3 over 5. Let's see, x's, I just have 5. Y's, I have 3. And z's, I need to subtract. So 1 minus 3 will give us a negative 2. And because it's negative, it goes into the denominator. Now, some of you guys might want to think, there's 1 on top, 2, 3 on the bottom. One of them cancels and there's 2 left over. You can think of it that way as well. Different ways of doing the same problem, different processes. They're all correct. But you should end up with the same answer. Remember, to get a z to the second power, it was 1 minus 3 is negative 2. But I place it on the denominator. For letter B, even though you have a negative exponent, you can't bring it down because of the second power. You need to simplify the numerator first. So let's go through the process. Distributive property first on the exponent. Now remember that this is negative 3 to the second power. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. Negative 3 times 2 is a negative 6. And 2 times 2 is 4. Denominator, we have 5, x to the negative 7, y to the 2. I must switch them, the exponents. Now, if you don't want to switch them and you just want to subtract, you can, but you just have to be very careful. This will be negative 6 minus 7, so it will be negative 6 minus negative 7. And that will give you the exponent. But usually whenever I have an exponent that's negative, I prefer to switch them around. Let me rewrite it before I simplify anything else. So let's see, the x comes up to us, x to the 7, y to the 4, the 5, then I have x to the 6, and y to the 2nd. That gives me 9, 5. X's, 7 minus 6 will give us a 1, x, or just x. Y's, 4 minus 2 will give us 2, and it's positive, so it stays on top. And this will conclude the lesson for today. You guys will be giving you homework. Once done your homework, and that homework is due the next time I see you. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.